if it gets that bad?
Well, without water, we've got a lot of problems. Bill Croyle, welcome. Share with us what the Drought Task Force is up to and what arrows are in your quiver.
I need a bigger quiver. So I get Bill Croyle with my mic's on.
Red button down.
Press it down.
There you go. Bill Croyle with the Department of Water Resources. In my current capacity as drought manager, my day job is flood ops. And so since apparently I wasn't doing anything, they decided, my staff and I, should jump into the drought activities. So the department's been working on our, what we call critical dry shortage conditions here for almost since last August and September, as we kind of looked at coming out of 2 years of dry and going into what was forecast to be, at least based on some long-range climate prediction, to be dry. And so apparently that prediction's coming true. And so it sounds like, and I apologize for being late, the task force meeting that I just came from was pretty intense today. It was very focused, and I'll talk briefly about that. So I won't go into some of our how bad is it, because it's bad. And so I appreciate some of the comments that we've heard, and so I apologize if I jump on anyone's comments. But, it's interesting, as I've done a lot of media queries over the last month, and people want to know how bad it is, and is it really northern or southern California? This is a statewide drought. This is a serious drought. This is the worst dry conditions that we've seen since recorded history, since, they're talking 1850. So we're out of the box. We're out of the box when it comes to reservoir operations, delta flows, allocations, beneficial uses. And so a lot of the things that we're talking about within the department, within the task force, is how do we, under the governor's proclamation, come together with all these agencies and all of our resources, and some resources are tight, and deal with our existing policies and procedures, and making sure that we're making changes in this, what I would call a very dynamic environment. Dynamic means every day we're getting new information about the impacts of these dry conditions on small communities, the environment, on agriculture, on labor. And so with that information, we're being forced to try to plan and do what I call advanced planning, as well as respond to those impacts. So with that, the governor set up this drought task force now, to determine whether we need to have a governor's proclamation, and if so, what needed to be in that. And so there was lots of engagement. It's certainly being done, and kind of information management is critical here to make sure the real-time conditions get pushed up to the governor's office as requested through California Office of Emergency Services. So that process is ongoing. It's part of the task force process, and they're really working to encourage these agencies to set up what are your next steps, what are the actions that you're taking or you're planning to take to address these dry conditions. And it's across the board. There's some key agencies. The State Water Board is huge. CDFA, Department of Water Resources, Cal OES is kind of the first four in the task force, but it goes from there. You've got Department of Health, Public Drinking Water, which is critical, and it goes on from there, from labor and other things. And so the task force made it very clear today. We had the governor's chief of staff make it very clear it's all hands on deck. And so what that means for us is it's nights and weekends. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for us to hear that, not just in state government, but for local agencies, the cities, and the public. And so we're pushing out a lot of information on conservation efforts. SaveOurWater.org is huge. There's radio spots that started today at 8 venues throughout the state to get that conservation message out now, because all of us, it doesn't matter if you're the public, a local, state agency, or federal agency, we have a role to play here. And I think it's very clear that the governor's office wants to make sure that we are all taking a proactive step at all levels of government and the public, and working together in what I would call a mutual aid versus kind of locking back into our normal water positions. This is a time when we really do need to work through a mutual aid environment and really reach over and assist those that are severely impacted. Today we just heard there's 15 communities that are less than 60 days worth of water. Now, some of those have been long-term issues, and they've been working through it. But because of these dry conditions, those kinds of impacts are going to get worse here shortly. So how do we do that? Does the state support them? Does the other local agencies support them? And so we are changing, we being the global we, not just the department, but we are changing how we kind of message, communicate, and really interact and work together to solve this problem. We went through, if I pull my slides up, is there a clicker? Oh, great, thank you. Sometimes I feel like I'm the guy with all the bad news, so I apologize, but I think this is real time, and let me go to, I'm assuming you guys got all the good news.
Yep.
So we'll go by there. So what this is, and I have extra paper copies, this is kind of the elements that are in the governor's proclamation. And so the governor's office is looking at this as really being the foundation. Each one of those 20 steps or 20 to-do items is for the state agencies to be on point to address the specific actions either laid out by the proclamation itself or the actions underneath that actually would execute or complete those tasks. And they're far-ranging. They go, again, from the conservation, which is huge, the water contingency plans, learning from those droughts in the past. We should have both ag and urban contingency plans, and so now's the time to address those off, and we're finding that people are just now starting to do that, even though they're realizing they're having water shortage problems. So part of that is setting the expectations at all levels of government that they need to really look at what we're doing, why we're doing it, and if we're not doing something, why, because we do need to take some action. Water transfers, State Water Board and the department have been working for a couple months to streamline this process. We're working to update our websites and go to real-time operations. We're working through the technical issues. We're just hoping we might have some water to transfer. It's not looking too good. But to the extent that somewhere along the line here we get a little bit of rain and the hydrologic conditions change, we want to be able to respond to that request. There's a number of consolidated place of use is happening. That's happening in real time this week and next. Again, going back to the close coordination and communication and really, again, working closely together with State Water Board and some of the other agencies, it's been clear to kind of get on with this action and deal with the concerns up front and work through them. The shovel-ready projects is a tough one. That's easy to say. And when you actually get into some of the details, whether it's funding or just how ready is it, there's concerns. But the governor's office wants to see, to the extent that state government can assist those local agencies in implementing those shovel-ready projects for conservation, water recycling, whether it's ag or urban, they want to see that move forward and fast track. Obviously the water quality control plans are a concern to everyone. I know Director Cowan has made it very clear. We're looking at this. It's going to be tough to work through this, but we're looking at a balanced approach. And we need to do that, a balance with close coordination and consultation with our state water resources, fish and wildlife, and our federal fish resources. So it goes on. So there's some short-term things that we're working on. We as the task force and the represented agencies. Some are short-term and some are long-term. Websites are being updated. There's lots of resources going out. But things like groundwater, State Water Board is out there trying to push that information forward and work through those policy issues. So we're tasked with coming up with some more information just on subsidence, impacts, overdraft, those kinds of things that here by April 30th, which will be key into working through this complicated groundwater issue. I think, groundwater is a sensitive one. We all understand that. I look at the snowpack for the surface water is the largest reservoir in California. Groundwater is huge, but groundwater doesn't serve everyone, but it's a precious resource that we all need to respect and care for. Delta actions. We already talked about barriers. Barriers, may become critical depending on if we have water in these reservoirs, what little water we have. We want to be able to use it moving into the delta to be able to maintain those delta standards. But to do that, we might have to take kind of some extreme steps. So we need to do that, again, in close coordination with our partner agencies. Without those agencies, those barriers won't happen and will have impacts in the delta. Whether we do that or not, those are decisions that are downline, but we are getting ready for just that kind of worst case scenario, which means we're starting to run the models today. We built our team. Our team goes everywhere from the modeling, identifying the assumptions, again, communicating across to our state water board partners, going through what's our designs look like, where's our locations look like, and then looking at how we do that from an environmental impact standpoint. So it's got to be cradle to grave, as well as the removal of those barriers. So we're looking at this as if we have to pull that trigger, we need to have this completely laid out. One of the things that's come up that's going to affect, I think, more than people think is really the kind of the social impact of these dry conditions. It's on, I think, the task force screen, the labor impacts, the mom and pop grocery stores, housing, paying rent, all those things are in front of the governor's office, and they want to make sure that that's lined up. And I think that's all called for in the proclamation. So I'll be happy to answer any specific questions to the extent I can regarding our activities, certainly as a department, on our process forward here. I think my next slide was just some questions. So you won't see it.
Looks like there.
Let me see. Well, stuff I wasn't going to show you. This is hard to see, and again, I have this in paper form, but this is actually the layout of the task force, and it's being implemented under this unified coordination group. To my knowledge, in California, we haven't used this structure through Cal OES, especially with a drought setting. But again, it's critical. We have your policy group made up of the primary 4 agencies, but again, a lot of other agencies are filling into that. But it's based on the SIMS structure. So again, there's reporting, there's operations, there's finance, there's logistics. And the idea for that, there's a structured process under the state's emergency plan that's being implemented to collect and process that information. And probably, to me, the most important part, and I happen to be on this chart in too many places, but as ops chief, when it comes to actually responding to, say, a small community that's run out of water, that there's a mechanism to actually go through and get them the water they need. If it raises to the state's emergency level, then we have the ability to respond, resource it right, design it right, pay for it right, etc. So with that, I'll...
Okay, Bill.